Hex tanks. Some people love them, some people not so much. Part of the reason for debate about these kinds of tanks in the hobby is, unlike your rectangular tanks, they require a little more caution in terms of what fish you put in them, as well as how many fish you put in them. Some people don't view it as that. Some people think 30 gallons is 30 gallons. Unfortunately, it's not as simple as that. For example, this here 30-gallon Hex column tank I recently got has 18 inches from front panel to back panel. Here, over to here. Whereas this 29-gallon tank right here is from side to side 30 inches long. You're talking about a whole foot's difference there. But that does not spell gloom and doom for any column tank, as they can be absolutely beautiful if you just do your homework on them and stock them properly. Ladies and gentlemen, fish folk alike, here are my 8 great ideas for column and hex tanks. Quick rule of thumb here, unless specified otherwise, most of these fish should be kept in about 15 to 20 gallons at minimum. Number 1 on the list are Tetras. Tetras, in my opinion, are a classic. Whether it's neon Tetras, cardinal Tetras, glow light Tetras, or even rummy nose Tetras, there's all sorts of Tetras that if your column tank is at least 20 gallons or bigger, you can't go wrong. And depending on the Tetra, say like a neon, you could probably do like a school of 4 or so, even in a 10-gallon. Tetras are also a pretty easy fish to keep, and they're very appealing to look at. They live in tropical waters, they accept a wide range of foods from freeze-dried to flakes, pellets, frozen foods. Most of them are not very picky. And regardless of what Tetra you get, they're all pretty compatible as long as you don't overstock the tank and they have plenty of territory to share amongst themselves. Unless you try to mix Exodon Tetras in. Stay clear of those. Number 2 is cherry barbs. Like Tetras, they live in tropical waters, so anywhere between 72 to 78 degrees would suffice these guys pretty well. They only grow to be, give or take, about 2 inches, so they don't get much bigger than what neons do. Also, like Tetras, they'll appreciate well-planted tanks, and really the plants and such just really make their red color pop even more. The only thing I will say is with barbs, they tend to be a little bit more notorious fin nippers than Tetras are, so keep an eye open for that. Number 3 is a Pea Puffer tank. Pretty sure some of you saw this one coming. If you've been around the block on my channel here before, you'll know I already have a 20-gallon Pea Puffer tank, and Pea Puffers are easily one of my favorite fish in the entire hobby. We all have our one fish in this hobby that we have a weakness for, and mine is pufferfish.
Duh.
Pea Puffers only grow to be about an inch big, so even in just a 10-gallon column tank, you could easily probably do 2 of them in there. Whereas in a 20-gallon hex like what I have here, you could probably put 4, if not 5, and easily have no problems, as long as you have places for each other to get out of sight, as they can be aggressive toward each other occasionally. I once made a video in terms of how to take care of Pea Puffers, so if you want to learn more about how to take care of these little guys here, feel free to check out the link that I'll include in the description below, as well as on the corner of the screen here. One thing I will say about the Pea Puffers in this video, though, is that they probably have the more pickier diet out of anyone that'll be on this list, as they don't accept flake, pellet, or freeze-dried foods very often. Instead, they'll take small snails, frozen foods such as brine shrimp or bloodworms, for example. Since they have a high-protein diet, make sure you got plenty of filtration to help keep their water quality high. Number 4 on the list is Platies. This is definitely one where it would probably be better to have a hex tank 20 gallons or bigger. Some Platies only get 2 to 3 inches. However, there are some Platies out there that'll grow more like 5 to 6 inches out there. Anyway, some assorted Platies, or even say Mickey Mouse Platies, that only get about 2 to 3 inches big, could be just fine in a 20 or 30 gallon. Something that I like about the Platies that kind of makes them unique to most fish on this list is that they can have like the different shaped fins. They can have, you know, obviously the typical ones, but also like the lyre tails or some even long fins. So depending on what you're into, you got various options there as well. Platies in some ways kind of remind me of African cichlids. Only they're not as aggressive, don't get as big, and don't require the different pH in the water. Maybe they're not as similar as I thought. Before I get to the second half of the list here, I want to give a quick channel shout out to King's Aquariums. Like myself, King's Aquariums has some aquariums that he loves to show off on his channel, and they're pretty good looking aquariums too, if I do say so myself. So head on over to his channel over there and give it some support. Number 5 on the list is guppies. One of the classics. I always say if you had a fish as a kid, my top 3 guesses would either be a goldfish, betas, or guppies. Guppies can do colder water to tropical water and don't get very big. They only get about 2 to 2.5 inches max. That, and I can't think of many other fish that are easier to breed than a guppy. And especially if you get various kinds of guppies and they breed, it doesn't take very long for that tank to just be popping full of different color, and just seeing all of them swim around, and live or fake planet tank, regardless of how you decor the tank, it just is absolutely awesome to watch. Number 6 on the list is Rasboras. This is another fish that you can mix with those tetras I mentioned earlier. The main 2 types I'll bring up here are Harlequin Rasboras and Galaxy Rasboras. With an orangish color to them, with that black patch upon them too, it would add some great contrast to some, say, cardinals or neons or whatever tetra you want to use. Or if you really want to get fancy, check out the Galaxy Rasboras, which are also known as Celestial Pearl Danios. The Galaxy Rasboras, however, only get about half the size of a Harlequin Rasbora, as they only get to about an inch, inch and a half at most, and that's all the bigger they'll get. Number 7 on this list here is a beta community tank. Considering the fact that I have 2 beta community tanks, it's no secret that I think this is a winning combination. While this isn't a hex, this is a 20-gallon long, and with a black crown tail beta here, I have 5 ember tetras, as well as a panda cory and a copper molly. While I may not stock it the same in a hex or a column tank, a black crown tail beta with some ember tetras, which is another small tetra that you could do, as I said earlier, they would look awesome inside, probably even a 10-gallon planted tank. And in case you want to know why I think a heavily live planted tank looks awesome, this 20-gallon long is part of that reason why. Tetras, though, are a main occupant that can go with betas, as they kind of have that sleek torpedo-shaped-like body that I always call it, which is kind of what you want to put in with betas. That way they have the ability to get away from the beta should the beta get aggressive. In this 20-gallon tall with my white crown tail beta, I have glass bloodfin tetras as well as black emperor tetras. I also have a video about beta care and what you can do in terms of tank mates with them. I'll go ahead and leave a link in the description for that video as well as a tag right here. Finally, at number 8 on the list, we have sparkling gouramis. As I've said before, there is something to be said about a school of tetras, barbs, or even guppies, but there is also something to be said about a school of sparkling gouramis. And like the majority of the fish on this list, they don't get very big. Sparkling gouramis only get about an inch and a half. In terms of temperament, sparkling gouramis are pretty peaceful for the most part. Obviously, the main thing with them is that you just want to make sure you don't get a fish that's big enough to fit them in their mouth, or any fish that are boisterous and a little more aggressive than they might be, as they could get picked on. In terms of a tank for sparkling gouramis by themselves, I would say you could easily put a trio of them in 10 gallons, probably even 4. If you like this list, go ahead and let me know by giving this video a thumbs up. If there's something on this list that stood out to you that sounded really good, or maybe you got a suggestion of your own that maybe I didn't mention, go ahead and let me know in the comments below. Until the next video, fish folk, happy fish keeping.